I would rather die than marry her.
The microphone shrieked once with feedback, before Johnny Drill tapped it twice, grinning at the 80-odd guests scattered across the rooftop of the Cheonji Tower, string lights swaying overhead in the humid Seoul night. Antonia stood near the edge of the crowd in a fitted charcoal dress, a champagne flute untouched in her hand, and she felt the shift in the air before he even opened his mouth. "Everybody, can I get your attention for 1 second?" Johnny said, flashing the smile that had once made her stomach flip and now made her stomach turn. "I want to make an announcement, and I want Antonia to hear it clearly, because I don't think she's ever heard anything clearly in her life." A ripple of laughter, uneasy at first, then bolder as it caught. Antonia's spine straightened. She did not move. "This woman," Johnny continued, pointing the microphone at her like a weapon, "has been planning our wedding in her head for 2 years, picking venues, sending me links to rings. And I let her, because it was cute, watching her build a whole future out of nothing." He paused for effect, savoring it. "I would rather die," he said, slow and deliberate, "than marry her." The crowd gasped, some laughed nervously, phones already rising. He turned, reaching for the hand of a woman standing near the bar, a junior analyst from Antonia's own floor. "This is Sujin, my upgrade. She actually knows how to be someone's partner instead of someone's assistant." Antonia did not cry. She did not drop the glass. She simply set it down on the nearest table with a controlled precision that unsettled the people closest to her more than tears would have, and walked toward the elevator with her chin level while 80 phones filmed her back. "Okay, if your chest is tight right now, that's the point, because this reckoning is going to be brutal and precise, and you do not want to miss a second of it. So hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments where you think this goes, because it goes somewhere very, very few people would predict. 3 floors below that rooftop, in an office with the lights already dimmed for the night, Lee Min had watched the entire thing on a private security feed he was never supposed to be monitoring during a company event. He did not raise his voice. He did not summon security. He simply closed his laptop, folded his hands on the desk, and sat very still for a long moment, the way a man sits still when he is deciding exactly how much of himself he is willing to spend on justice. To understand why a man who owned a conglomerate as a legitimate front for one of the most disciplined syndicates in the country would care this much about a public humiliation on a rooftop, you would have to go back 20 months. To the first morning Antonia walked into his office with a coffee order memorized after asking only once. She took it with 2 sugars, a splash of oat milk, extra hot, and she liked it in the blue mug. Not the white one, because the white one she'd mentioned once in passing to another assistant reminded her of hospital rooms from a difficult year back home. Lee Min had heard that comment through a closed door. He had never mentioned it. He had simply made sure the blue mug was always clean, always available, always exactly where her hand would land first. He learned that she preferred her calendar blocked in 15-minute intervals, not 30, because 30 made her anxious about wasted time. He learned she kept a small tin of ginger candy in her desk drawer for the days her stomach turned during stressful negotiations, and when that tin ran empty, a fresh one appeared without explanation. He learned the exact firmness of her handshake with clients who tried to talk over her, and how she recalibrated her tone half a register lower when she needed a room full of executives to actually listen. Antonia ran Cheonji Tower's daily operations with a precision that made grown men in suits quietly grateful she existed, though few of them ever said so aloud. And Lee Min watched all of it from a careful distance, saying nothing, protecting everything for 20 months, because a man in his position understood better than anyone that some things could not be rushed without being ruined. Johnny Drill, for his part, understood people the way a surgeon understands anatomy, clinically, and only insofar as it helped him cut. He had met Antonia 18 months earlier at a diaspora networking mixer, had complimented her ambition within the first 10 minutes, and had spent the following year turning that ambition into a weapon against her. It started small. A temporary loan he needed, co-signed for a business venture that never materialized. A joint account he insisted would simplify their shared expenses, though the expenses were never actually shared. An introduction to his notary friend, a woman named Hannah, who worked 2 floors above Antonia in records management and had grown quietly, viciously jealous of how effortlessly Antonia commanded respect in rooms Hannah had spent years trying to enter. Together, Johnny and Hannah had spent months forging a deed transfer on Antonia's apartment, the one asset she owned outright. Purchased with 4 years of overtime and sacrifice, using a signature Hannah had traced from old expense reports. Johnny drained the joint account in increments small enough not to trigger alarms, redirected 2 of Antonia's investment dividends into a shell account under Hannah's maiden name, and smiled at Antonia every single morning as though none of it were happening, calling her Jagia over breakfast while her financial foundation quietly hollowed out beneath her feet. She found out on a Tuesday. Not from Johnny, from her banking app, which flagged an overdraft on an account that should have had $11,000 sitting untouched. Antonia sat at her desk after everyone else had gone home, scrolling through transaction after transaction she had never authorized, her hands going cold, her breath shortening in a way she hadn't experienced since the year she left home with nothing but a suitcase and a scholarship letter. She pulled up the deed records next, some instinct guiding her fingers before her mind had even caught up to the fear, and found her apartment listed under a pending transfer she had never signed. The full shape of the betrayal arrived all at once, not gradually, the way floodwater doesn't ask permission before it takes a house. If you've ever had that moment where the floor just disappears from under you and you realize someone you trusted has been quietly destroying you the whole time, comment the word reckoning below, because what happens next is exactly what you're hoping for. And I need you subscribed before we get there. Lee Min found her still at her desk near 10 that night, the office empty except for the hum of the servers, her hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. He did not ask what was wrong. He had already known for 6 weeks since his internal compliance team, the same quiet apparatus that audited every financial irregularity connected to Cheonji Tower's staff as a matter of protective policy, had flagged unusual activity tied to Antonia's accounts and traced it back through Hannah's records access. He had been building the case since then, silently, patiently, waiting for the right moment, because exposing it too early, without proof, would have let Johnny wriggle free with excuses. Antonia C., he said quietly from the doorway, using her name with the same careful respect he always did, never once shortening it, never once assuming familiarity he hadn't earned. Come to my office on Saturday, not as an assistant, as someone I need to speak with directly. She looked up at him, exhausted in a way that went beyond sleep, and something in his stillness made her nod without asking why. Saturday arrived gray and quiet, the tower nearly empty, and Lee Min had a folder waiting on his desk, thick enough that she noticed it the moment she walked in. He did not offer coffee first, which surprised her, until she realized why. He wanted her fully present, not soothed, for what he was about to say. 6 weeks ago, he began, sliding the folder toward her. My compliance division flagged irregular financial activity connected to your name. I did not tell you immediately because I needed certainty, not suspicion. She opened the folder with hands that had gone unsteady again and found it all laid bare in forensic detail. The forged deed transfer, time-stamped and cross-referenced, with Hana's badge access logs from the night the signature was traced, the Shell account under Hana's maiden name, 3 months of dividend redirects, a paper trail so complete it read less like an accusation and more like a verdict already rendered. "This is everything," Lee Min said. "Every account he touched, every document he falsified. My legal team has already prepared injunctions to freeze the transfer and the Shell account, pending your authorization." Antonia's eyes lifted to his, and for the first time in 18 months, she felt something that wasn't dread. "Why?" she asked, her voice low, careful. "Would you do all of this for me?" Lee Min was quiet for a long moment, the kind of quiet that belonged to a man weighing exactly how much truth a moment could carry. "Because I have watched you run this company better than 3 of my department heads combined, and I have said nothing for 20 months, out of respect for the fact that you did not ask to be watched," he said. "And because the thought of that man taking one more thing from you was something I could not sit with." He did not reach for her hand. He did not soften the moment with a smile. "I am telling you this now because the timing is terrible, and I know it. You deserve to hear it when you are not standing in wreckage. But I would rather you know where I stand than let you think you are facing this alone." Antonia sat with that for a long time, the folder heavy in her lap, and said only, "Protect the apartment first. We can talk about the rest of it later." Lee Min nodded once, already reaching for his phone. "It is already done." By Monday morning, the machinery Lee Min had built over 6 quiet weeks began to turn, and it turned without a single raised voice. Antonia's accounts were formally frozen and restored to her sole control before 9 a.m. The fraudulent deed transfer flagged and reversed by the property registry with a speed that only came from decades of institutional relationships, called in favor by favor. Hana was summoned to Human Resources at 9:15, and by 9:40, she was walking out of Cheonji Tower with a single banker's box and a termination letter citing falsification of internal records and breach of fiduciary conduct. Her badge deactivated before she reached the lobby. No announcement was made. No one whispered in the hallways because Lee Min did not deal in spectacle. He dealt in outcomes. 2 floors down, a private line rang in Johnny Drill's office at his own firm, an assistant informing him with polite corporate detachment that Cheonji Tower's executive office had requested his presence that afternoon regarding a business matter of mutual concern. Johnny arrived at 3 o'clock, wearing the same confident smile he'd worn on the rooftop, certain this was about a contract renewal, or better yet, damage control on Anthonia's behalf, some groveling attempt to keep her employed after the scene he'd made. He had no idea what was waiting. If you think Johnny is about to walk into a quiet room and walk out a very different man, you are correct. And you do not want to look away for even a second. So make sure you're subscribed right now, because what happens behind that door in the next few minutes is the entire reason you clicked on this video. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, and instead of a conference room full of colleagues, Johnny was met by a single assistant who escorted him silently down a corridor to a closed office door. No lobby scene, no audience, nothing for him to perform for. Inside, Lee Min sat behind his desk, Antonia seated calmly to his right. A folder closed in front of her now, her posture composed in a way that made Johnny's confidence falter for the first time. "Mr. Drill?" Lee Min said, not rising, not extending a hand. "Sit." Johnny sat, his smile flickering. "I assume this is about the little scene at the party," he said, attempting levity. "Look, it wasn't personal. It was just—" "It is not about the party," Lee Min said, cutting him off with a stillness that carried more weight than any raised voice could have. He opened the folder and turned it to face Johnny. It is about a forged deed transfer on Miss Anthonia's apartment, executed with a signature traced from company records by an accomplice who no longer works here. It is about 3 redirected dividend payments totaling $41,000. It is about a joint account you drained by $11,200 over the past 9 months, in increments designed to avoid detection. Johnny's face drained of color as he stared at the documents, his mouth opening and closing without sound. You can't prove any of this actually came from me. Every transfer traces to an IP address registered to your apartment. Lee Min continued, unmoved, unhurried, each sentence landing like a closing door. Every login to the shell account occurred during hours your own work calendar confirms you were at your desk. The forensic accountant my firm retained is prepared to testify to all of it, and has already submitted the full report to both the property registry and the relevant financial fraud unit. He let that settle before continuing, his voice never once rising. You have 2 options, Mr. Drill. The first is that this proceeds through the courts, in full, with your employer, your visa sponsor, and your family informed of every detail as part of the public record. The second is that you resign your position effective immediately, repay the full amount within 30 days through the account my legal team will provide, and leave Seoul within the week. And this matter remains contained to the people in this room. Johnny looked at Antonia, searching her face for the softness he'd always been able to manipulate, the hesitation he used to talk his way around. He found none of it. Antonia, come on. He tried, his voice shifting into something wounded, performative. You know me. We can talk about this like adults, without him in the room. I know exactly who you are, Antonia said, speaking for the first time, her voice even and unshaken. I have known for 6 weeks. I simply did not tell you, because I wanted to watch you keep performing a relationship you had already destroyed. Johnny's jaw tightened, the charm cracking into something colder. You'll regret this, he said quietly, the mask finally slipping. Both of you. Lee Min closed the folder with a single deliberate motion. I have built a career out of understanding exactly what people are capable of, Mr. Drill. And I promise you, regret is not something you are equipped to threaten me with. Security escorted Johnny from the building 20 minutes later, his visa sponsorship revoked by end of day, his employer informed by legal counsel of the fraud investigation before Johnny even reached his car, his professional reputation dismantled with the same quiet, total precision Lee Min applied to everything else. He left Seoul 11 days later, and no one who mattered to Antonia ever heard from him again. In the weeks that followed, Lee Min never once treated the resolution of the fraud as leverage for the confession he'd made in his office that Saturday. He did not ask her to dinner the following night, did not fill her inbox with meaningful glances disguised as work emails. He simply continued the small, steady rituals he had always kept. The blue mug, the 15-minute calendar blocks, the ginger candy quietly replenished, and let her decide, in her own time, what space she wanted him to occupy. It was Antonia who, 3 weeks later, lingered an extra few minutes after their Friday debrief, asking if he'd eaten dinner yet, and Lee Min, who answered honestly that he hadn't, and the 2 of them who ended up sharing a quiet meal at a small restaurant near the tower. No cameras, no rooftop, no audience. Just 2 people who had spent 20 months being patient with each other in different ways, finally allowing themselves to sit in the same silence without needing to fill it. Their courtship, when it finally began, moved the way Lee Min moved through everything, deliberately, respectfully, without spectacle, and Antonia found herself lowering her guard, not because he demanded it, but because for the first time in years, no one was asking her to. Some people need a microphone and a rooftop full of strangers to feel powerful, announcing their cruelty like it's an achievement worth applauding. And some people spend 20 months in silence, memorizing the smallest details of someone's life, not to control them, but to protect what the loud ones never bothered to notice was precious. If this story hit you the way I think it did, subscribe now, hit that like button, and tell me in the comments which line stayed with you longest, because there is more where this came from. And I promise you, the quiet ones always win in the end.